I'm going to embarrass myself quite a bit with this video, I imagine. It's been quite a while since I've had a chance to pull up Pinball FX3 by Zen Studios, and my skills are more than a little bit rusty, I'm afraid. I do love my pinball and do like to play it as much as I can, but October and September are particularly horrible times for game releases, and I think there was something like 20 JRPGs released within the last month, let alone stuff like Death Stranding and all those kinds of other time sinks. So I just haven't had time to play games for fun, but when I do get time, Zen Studios' work is right up there with the things I like to do. And they've released a couple of new tables, which is good. 2 new horror-themed, spooky-themed tables to tie into the Halloween season. So while I'm getting to these a little bit after Halloween, they're still new, and I wanted to show them off, and I wanted to do another video on pinball anyway. So here we go. Here goes my horrible pinball skills. So the 2 tables that have been released were both based on real-world pinball tables. I don't know if any working units of these tables still exist in the world. They were both relatively limited releases, so it may well be that they're both purely for the archives, but Zen Studios has done a really good job in capturing those tables here, along with Zen Studios' usual efforts to, I guess, put some video game animation and things into them to make them a little bit more vibrant. You can turn that stuff off if you want the truly authentic experience, of course, but you know, I like to have them on. I like the additional animations and flashbangs and things. These are Williams tables. Zen Studios picked up the license for Williams, I think it was about a year ago now, and has steadily been releasing new tables from the archives there. And yeah, these are the 2 latest ones. I think there's about a dozen now, I think, of original kind of, you know, real-world tables that you can play. These 2 are 2 of the better ones, I've got to say. I have had more fun with these than some of the others. I think that these tables are both really well designed and particularly engaging in terms of their layouts. So the first one, the one that you're seeing here me play right now, is Monster Bash, which takes a whole bunch of Universal classic monsters, Dracula, the Swamp Monster, Frankenstein's Monster, the Mummy, all of those kinds of things from the Hollywood film properties from the 50s, I imagine, the 50s and 60s, those kind of bad horror, science fiction style films, B-grade stuff for people who really enjoy those kinds of things. It takes all of those and basically lets you beat the pinball against each of them. There's a whole bunch of ramps there, as you can see, and each of those ramps basically leads to different kind of missions against different Universal monsters. So yeah, it's a particularly well designed table. It's my kind of table. I like that there's so many different things you can do, and basically anywhere that you decide to focus on hitting the ball, you get something a bit different out of it. And the multiple monster theme is really cool. It's vibrant. It's got a lot of energy, and it's a really standout table. The second one, which is the one you're seeing here, is based on a single classic horror movie, Creature from the Black Lagoon, which is a film that any film buff is probably aware of. It's not the greatest film to this day. You can buy it on Apple iTunes or whatever and watch it, and it is not the great film by any means, but it is an important one, and it is a well-known one. So it makes sense that this would be one of the tables that Zen Studios decides to bring across, especially people who would remember playing this table. The film will probably be quite fresh in the mind too. In this one, it has a little bit less energy, I've got to say. I'm not as much of a fan of this one, and that's not just because I'm not nearly as good at it, but I'm not a huge fan of tables that have that huge kind of space in the middle with nothing on it. You can imagine the real table doesn't have the Swamp Thing there actually popping out and doing his thing. So the actual table itself in the real world would look fairly sparse, and those ramps are fairly far away. I prefer to have, I guess, a more kind of twitchy action kind of experience where the stuff that you're trying to reach to get points is closer. So this is not so much my kind of table. It's still good fun, and I think it works well, and the music's particularly delightful. It's very B grade. It's good fun. It is a good fun table, and I think people will enjoy it anyway. It's just not as much fun to me as the Monster Bash one. Of course, I'm a big fan of any effort to archive and preserve the action of any pinball table, classic pinball tables. Farsight Studios did a good job of it back in the day, and now Zen Studios has picked up the baton with at least the Williams series of tables. And it's a good thing. I mean, a lot of these tables did have very limited releases. I think this Monster Bash one only had around 3,500 units made globally, so you can imagine just how hard it was to find that table. You may have heard about it somewhere but never had a chance to play it, and I think that the availability of pinball has really been improved with stuff like this, and people are rediscovering pinball thanks to games like this one, and that's a good thing. That's a very good thing indeed. I think that pinball was in very close danger of dying out a generation, not even a generation ago, a decade ago. It was in very close danger of dying out, and there weren't any. I think there was one manufacturer left that was still making new tables and stuff. And actually, thanks to, I think, the success of this pinball, these digital pinball games, people are rediscovering a love of the actual analog pinball tables as well, because they are different experiences. One of the things you kind of expect from a table like Zen Studios, like a product from Zen Studios, is that the ball physics will always be completely reliable and accurate, and, you know, take advantage of the digital platform to make sure that there's nothing unfair about the scoring system when it comes to leaderboards, and you would expect, you know, online leaderboards and stuff. Analog pinball is a little bit different, where things can go wrong. There can be slight bumps in the table which might affect where the ball rolls, and the ball weight itself works a little bit differently. I don't think anybody's ever quite got the ball physics down perfectly in line with how they work in the real world, and I think Zen Studios tends to make their ball physics a little bit floatier to help make the games a little bit more playable. Analog pinball tables tend to be a little bit harsher on the movement of the ball, because that way you lose the ball quicker and you've got to put another dollar into the machine to play again. So I think that this kind of game that Zen Studios has produced continues to be a great way to introduce people to pinball, and then people who get into that can then go and discover real world pinball afterwards. And it has led to a revival for pinball. I think there was a new manufacturer that came into play a couple of years ago now. There are more tables being made again, and you see in arcades and whatever, you actually see pinball tables coming back in and people actually standing around playing them. And on top of that, you know, people are buying them as private investments. It's not that expensive to have a pinball table. It's a couple of $1,000s. If you're really into the type of game that pinball tables offer, then that's not such a bad investment. It's no different to buying yourself an arcade cabinet, for example. Anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent rant, but I wanted to talk about it. I haven't had a chance to talk about pinball for a while, so sorry I ranted a little bit. It wasn't really a rant. Sorry I talked a little bit. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't checked out these pinball tables, then do so. If you haven't checked out Zen Studios Pinball FX3, then definitely do so. It's basically on every platform, and it is really good. And there are so many tables to play with now that it's just amazing how much value you get out of this. Thanks very much for watching. We will see you at the next video, and please do subscribe and back me on Patreon if you enjoy my videos. Thank you. See you next time.